And we are now filing into the webinar on Zoom as well. Welcome, welcome, Travel Week readers. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have an amazing, very exciting show. Today we have the lovely Denise Graham and Jared Fournier, who are here with Broadway Inbound / the Broadway Connection, and they are going to offer us a fabulous presentation, letting us know all that's new on the Broadway scene and more about how you can buy tickets for your clients, the best way to do that. So just a few notes of housekeeping before we get started. Number one, as always, if you have questions, please leave those in the Q&A box you see at the bottom of your screen. I will be back on again at the very end of today's shows, and I will ask any questions to Denise and Jared that you have live on your behalf. So don't be shy and use this time to get your questions answered. Also, we have an extremely exciting prize attached to today's webinar. We have 2 complimentary tickets to a Broadway show of your choice. Wow, that is a big one. So all you have to do is stay through to the end of today's webinar, and you will be eligible and then entered into the draw to win those tickets. So sit back, enjoy the show, and I'm really excited to pass this floor over now to Denise and Jared. Denise and Jared, thanks so much, and take it away.
Great. Thank you so much and welcome everyone. On behalf of Jared and myself, I just want to thank you for joining us today. I mean, in Broadway shows, it's such an exciting add-on to any trip to New York City, really. So today we're just going to give you a quick little update on what's new on Broadway, what started just this spring and running throughout the summer as well. And there's lots of good stuff, lots of new musicals. Some of our top shows we'll also cover that have been around for a little while, but still very, very popular and very high in demand. And then also what else we offer. And all of this, of course, most importantly, how to make commission when you book theater tickets in New York, and earn commission, of course, as well. And we'll cover that at the very end of the presentation. So my wonderful colleague based right in Manhattan, New York City, Jared Fournier, is with us. He's the director of sales for Broadway Inbound, or the Schubert organization. So I'm going to play Vanna White today. I will switch the slides for Jared, and I will let Jared take it away from here. So thank you again, Jared, for joining us.
Well, thank you, Denise / Vanna, and hello, everyone joining us. It's so nice to see your little comments coming through on the chat. As Denise said, my name is Jared. I'm the director of sales. I'm coming to you live from my office in New York City. All of the Broadway theaters are just a few blocks north of me, so it's very excited to be joining you. And we, as Denise mentioned, are Broadway Inbound. So we are the business-to-business company that helps the global travel trade make booking Broadway shows and more easy as part of a trip to New York. We're part of a larger company called the Schubert Organization, which is an owner and operator of 17 Broadway theaters and 6 off-Broadway venues. We also produce many of the shows. We own the ticketing system that many of the shows use to process all the back end. So we really are at the heart of Broadway. And myself, I'm lucky enough to be at the heart of Broadway and the heart of travel. So let me start by just giving you a little bit of an insider's tip. Book the tickets in advance. It is very important. We hear a lot that we hear travelers say, oh, I'm just going to go to New York and I'll wait in line at Times Square and I might get a discount. And oh, I'll just figure out what I want to see when I walk around the city. What I'm telling you is that you're setting your travelers up for disappointment. Don't waste your valuable sightseeing time waiting in a long line that you don't get as much of a discount as you thought. Don't want to see the most popular show and then when you get here, it's already sold out. Book the tickets in advance. Then it's part of the trip. You can make your dinner reservations. You can figure out where you're going to go get cocktails after the show to talk about it. And you're not setting up for disappointment. You're setting up for excitement. So book the tickets in advance. That's my big message to start. And now let's go on to some really fun stuff. This here is a little snapshot, all the logos of our Broadway Collection shows. So our Broadway Collection is a marketing program that is basically curating a shorter list of shows for our travel partners that really are the shows that everyone's going to want to see. These are the ones that are most suited for international and domestic travelers to the city. It's not every single show on Broadway, but it's the big musicals, the hot tickets, and the ones that most of your travelers are going to be asking about. So, what we're going to focus on today is some of the new shows. But let's start the next slide where we can talk briefly about some of the long running hits on Broadway and the real New York City institutions. So I'm sure that you are familiar with Broadway as a product, Broadway as a brand, and a lot of these shows have become synonymous with what Broadway really is. They have become legendary in their own right, running in New York City for decades. Chicago the Musical has been over 25 years on Broadway, 8 times a week. Wicked, the backstory of the Witches of Wizard of Oz before Wizard of Oz became the popular story. The Book of Mormon, you laugh your butt off in the theater, not for kids, but for adults, and it offends everyone equally. The Lion King has been on Broadway for, again, over 25 years. Hamilton is still a phenomenon that's taking Broadway by storm. Aladdin, the other Disney show on Broadway, the magic carpet flies across the stage. It truly is an incredible experience. So, of course, today we're going to focus on some of the shows that are newer, that are fresher, that maybe you haven't heard of. But it's important to remember that in general, there is something for everyone on Broadway. If you've seen a show before, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't see one on your next trip. All of the shows are so different. They have their own flavor. If you want to laugh, there's a show for you. If you want to cry, there's a show for you. If you want romance, there's a show for you. If you want to bop along to music that you know, like & Juliet or MJ or Moulin Rouge, these shows, & Juliet is one that, first, let me just say the plot. Think about what would happen if Juliet doesn't kill herself at the end of Romeo and Juliet. Okay, so life after Romeo. And it uses all pop music, Britney Spears, the Backstreet Boys, Katy Perry. So there's a lot of shows that you can come into already kind of being able to bop to the music. MJ is all Michael Jackson music. Moulin Rouge is similar, where it uses pop music like Adele and Lady Gaga to tell the story, and it still has all the iconic songs from the film as well. So, really, my message here is that there is something for everyone on Broadway, and we don't have time today to talk in detail about every single show, of course, but Denise and I love talking about shows. So, you can reach out to us at any time if you want to talk about shows and what traveler might be right for what show, and we'll be happy to kind of talk you through it because we love Broadway, we see all the shows, and it's one of our favorite passions is to talk about it. So, that's kind of the big level stuff. Now let's get a little bit more detail with some info and some videos of some of the new stuff on Broadway, some of the hottest things that are available and bookable and here to welcome all of your travelers to sit back and relax. And I will just say too, seeing a Broadway show is a once in a lifetime experience for many people. And even just walking into the building alone can give you a really, really unique experience. The Broadway theaters are all very historic. Most of them are over 100 years old. And you just go in after a day of sightseeing, you find your seats, that you get your playbill, sit back, relax. And for a couple hours, you're swept away with the most beautiful and magical singing, dancing, and storytelling that there is in the world. So it's a once in a lifetime experience for many travelers, and you don't want them to miss out. Book it as part of the trip. So, Back to the Future. I'm assuming, I know this, I can't talk back and forth with you all on this webinar. I wish I could, but I'm assuming many of you are familiar with the very iconic film, Back to the Future. And this adaptation into a musical does not disappoint. It's hilarious. It's extremely true to the film, so it has that nostalgia factor. If you go in knowing the film and being a fan, you're definitely getting what you're looking for, but at the same time, it still feels original. The music is original. They've done a great adaptation to put all of the music in to tell the story. The cast is amazing. They're super energetic and it's funny, and the special effects are out of this world. I don't want to give anything away, but if you're familiar with that very last few scenes of the time traveling car in the film, just picture that happening live on stage in front of you. It's unbelievable. So again, I don't want to give anything away because hopefully a lot of you guys will come see it, but it is truly a crowd pleaser and it is good for all audience members, all ages. There's no concern of content whatsoever. Let's just show a little brief video so you can get kind of an idea of the visuals of the show.
Great Scott! Good evening, this is Dr. Emmett Brown, and this is my time machine.
A time machine?
You're a slacker, McFly!
1955.
Hey, McFly, I thought I told you never to come in here. If they don't meet, they won't fall in love, they won't get married, and neither you nor your siblings will ever be born.
Whoa, this is heavy. You don't need money, don't take fame, don't need no credit card to ride this train. It's strong and it's sudden and it's cool sometimes, but it might just save your life. That's the power of love.
Yes. Back to the Future. Oh my God. And that the guy who plays the professor, the doctor, what's his name? His name's escaping me,
Doc.
the character name. Yes, Doc. He was nominated for the Tony Award this year. So we're rooting for him and all the other Tony Award nominees. The Tony Awards are June 16th, just so you know. Next up, Great Gatsby. This show is one of the most spectacular visual productions I have seen in a long time. The sets, the costumes, they even have like fireworks on stage. The lush, grand quality of the production is really what people want in a big, splashy Broadway musical. And of course, it stars some really young and sexy and hip actors with Jeremy Jordan and Eva Novosblata. And it really is the story of the book that everyone knows and the film version, of course. And I just can't say enough about the lush quality of it. So it's basically the story of these rich people in the 20s with some intertwining love stories and some affairs and some drama, and kind of goes a little bit into just what capitalism is, and all of the sort of themes that you know from the well-known story, but it's told in a big splashy Broadway musical. It's got the tap dancing. It's got all of the, big scene changes that just blow your mind that they can actually fit all of that in the theater and backstage. So it's a good one for people who are familiar with the story, but it's also good for people who just want to be wowed by the production value. And we have a little short video of that one too, so you can get an idea of some of the music.
Be there as The Great Gatsby roars onto Broadway. This record-shattering sold-out hit is lush, bewitching, and dazzling. Teeming with excitement, The Great Gatsby explodes off the stage. Jeremy Jordan and Ivana Lozada star in this resplendent and glorious new musical, The Great Gatsby. The party begins March 29th. RSVP at BroadwayGatsby.com. Be there.
It's super fun, and I don't want to brag, but I went to the opening night for Great Gatsby and was at the star-studded after party, and I was just beside myself. So, but that's a personal tidbit. Heart of Rock and Roll. I don't know how many Huey Lewis and the News fans we have on this webinar, but I was reminded when I saw this show how many great songs that Huey Lewis wrote. So this musical is inspired by the music of Huey Lewis and the News, but just to be clear, it's not the Huey Lewis story. It is not a biography. It follows it's a totally unique and original story. It just has all of Huey Lewis's music intertwined within the show to tell the story. But it's a love story, it's a family story, it's about this man who is a salesperson for a container factory, and then he gets into a relationship with his boss's daughter, and then there's some drama and some questions about if he's going to go become a rock star and re-find his original passion or change his life choices. And it's super super fun and funny and upbeat, and you leave with a very heartwarming feeling in your soul. It really is a fun show. It's not selling as well as a lot of other shows, to be totally honest and candid on it, so it needs some help. And I'm here to tell you that you won't be disappointed, especially if you're a Huey Lewis fan. He wrote some great music. I Want a New Drug and all of this stuff that I had kind of forgot was Huey Lewis, but when they started singing it on the stage, I was like, oh right, I love that song. It's one of those shows that you know the music and you're reminded how great of an artist Huey Lewis was, and it's a super fun, uplifting story. I think we have a video. I'm trying not to talk too much about these shows because videos speak for themselves.
Here we go.
I don't know about you guys. The sound was not great for me on that video. I should just have sung the songs for you, but I
Oh, it
couldn't
looks
hear.
fine on mine end.
The heart of
Bad.
rock and roll is the beat. Yeah, so I think someone just said in a comment they're having sound issues. So sorry about the sound on that one, but trust me, it sounds great. You can find that video on YouTube later. um, the next one I'll talk about is Hell's Kitchen. This show was nominated for 13 Tony Awards, the most of any new musical this season. Um, and of course, I can't mention the show without talking about Alicia Keys, because it's all of Alicia Keys' music that's intertwined, and it is inspired by her childhood. And although it is Alicia Keys and part of her life story and all of her music, it really doesn't even need to be about Alicia Keys. It's a true coming of age story in the 1990s. A teenager who's 17 years old growing up in New York City in Hell's Kitchen, which is a neighborhood in New York City, if you weren't aware, in Midtown West. And it's a very formative year for her. She's 17 years old, living with a single mother. Her father's in the picture, but he's kind of a little bit of a deadbeat. It's the first time that she gets inspired to take piano lessons, and her piano teacher has a big impact on her life. She starts to have a crush on a boy, but the boy's older and her mother doesn't really approve. It really is a coming of age story in New York City, and it's super, super authentic. So, although it is inspired by Alicia Keys and it is her 17 years old time of her life, it's not it doesn't go into all of Alicia Keys' success. It's not the story of her life. It's not a biography. It is 1 year in her life that was very formative, and it's really moving and funny. And the singing is unbelievable because they have all of Alicia Keys' biggest hits and some original music that she wrote for the show, but they're singing it in a really, really badass music theater style. So it's Alicia Keys, but a little bit with a twist. And it was one of my favorite shows this season for sure. I love Alicia Keys music. I grew up in the 90s, so I was also into all the fashion and everything they were showing on the stage. But I also really do love a authentic coming of age story, particularly when it's set in New York City. When you're sitting in a theater in New York City, it just feels very genuine. And I think we have a short video of this one also, which we may have technical difficulties. So let's see how it goes.
Fingers crossed.
There's a place where the rhythm of the city is music, where every corner has a story and every window is a kaleidoscope, where a girl can step out of her apartment and find the world. Hell's Kitchen, a new Broadway musical from Alicia Keys. Remember where dreams begin.
I love that she says, I love that line in there where she can step out of her apartment and find the world. That's like a really good line for that show and really captures the feeling that you get when you're sitting in the theater. I love a good coming of age story. The Notebook. Bring your tissues, everyone. Bring your tissues. Oh, I was a mess in the theater. I'm assuming also, again, I would say a show of hands, but probably many of you on this webinar have seen the iconic film, The Notebook, maybe also read the book, the novel. I think it was a novel, yeah. It it is a beautiful adaptation of that iconic story onto the stage. There are 3 versions of this deeply in love couple. There's a young version when they first meet and their romance first sparks. There's a middle version where they're kind of going through some trials and tribulations and, have a short period of breaking up and getting back together and reuniting. And then, of course, there's the old version where they've been together for decades and are kind of towards the end of their life and reflecting back on their entire history as a couple and the love that they've grown over the years. And it truly moved me. I mean, I know I'm kind of joking when I say bring the tissues, but at the merchandise stand, they actually sell Notebook branded tissue boxes that you can buy on your way in because you really do need the tissues. I was very moved. I am a sucker for romance. I'm a sucker for anything with, elderly people looking back on their life. That kind of content really gets me. So I personally was very moved by it. The music is wonderful by Ingrid Michaelson, and it's got almost a little bit of a folky sound to it at sometimes, on top of being, of course, traditional musical theater. The 3 couples who play 3 actors who play this couple in different parts of their life, the stories intertwine so beautifully. There is that iconic rain scene. Oh, it's just it really is something to behold on stage. It's beautiful, and I can't stress it enough. Really bring the tissues or you're going to regret it. So let's look at a little video of this one too, and then we'll keep on trucking.
What kind of book is it?
It's a love story.
Hey, I'm Noah.
I'm Allie.
I love you, Allie. I loved you then, and I love you now.
And the two older actors who played the couple in their late age, they were both nominated for the Tony Award as well for Best Actor and Best Actress, and their chemistry on stage is just beautiful. The Outsiders is another brand new musical that's also based on a pretty famous book, and there was a film version as well. Um, Kids, basically. I mean, they're older actors who are playing younger kids, but who it almost reminded me a little bit of West Side Story, where it was a territorial dispute from young kids who are, trying to get control over the playground area, and it's the Socs who are kind of the rich kids versus the greasers who are kind of the poor kids, and these three brothers who have lost their father and kind of dependent on each other. It's another sort of coming of age story. There is some romance within it, but it also kind of teaches you. And I will say I had not freshly read the book before I went into the show, so I was kind of seeing it almost as a story that was new to me, but many of my colleagues and friends and things who have also seen the show have told me that they're huge Outsiders fans, who one of their favorite books of all time, blah blah blah, and they went into the show and they were blown away by how much the musical did justice to the book that they remember and love so much. This has also been a really, really popular show with our student groups. So I know a lot of you advisors and folks on the call may have some families who travel to New York. This one has been one of the top sellers with student groups in a long time, and there's a whole scene that is a rumble. It's like a big kind of climactic moment in the show that's like a fight scene, and it happens in the pouring rain. It's one of the most spectacularly staged, choreographed numbers that I think I have ever seen in a musical, and I've been doing this for a long time. So I think definitely if you're a fan of the book or the movie and know the story, you're gonna not be disappointed. But for me, as a semi newcomer to the story, not really knowing it in depth, I also was very moved. And the cast is young and they've got incredible voices. The talent is just amazing. So I think we have a little video of this one too, and we'll keep on moving.
And I believe Angelina Jolie is
One of the
in for this
producers.
show as well, right? Yeah.
Yes, she is one of the producers, and she was at opening night and got a lot of buzz. She looked great.
Good. Okay, here we go.
It's more pulse pounding than anything on Broadway. And now, The Outsiders has been nominated for 12 Tony Awards, including Best Musical. The New York Times calls it refreshing, gritty, and endlessly effective. With brilliant staging, high-octane choreography, and a sensational cast, it's the best new musical of the season. The Outsiders, on Broadway. Get tickets today.
So all the shows like to say they're the best new musical of the season. Of course, it's up for interpretation, obviously. But again, back to what I kind of started with, there's something for everyone, truly. As you can see, as we're going through these new shows, they're so different. I mean, you could come here and see all of them and have a different night at the theater every night. There really is something for everyone. Suffs is about the women's suffragist movement in the part of American history when women were fighting for their right to vote. And I actually learned it during this musical because I had always said suffragette. I had always referred to this group as suffragettes, and I didn't know the difference, just what I had kind of heard and remembered in school. But I learned when I watched this musical that they're actually not called suffragettes. They don't refer to themselves that way. They're suffragists, because to call them suffragettes almost patronizes them and makes it a sort of offensive thing, calling them like, you know, women who want something that they shouldn't have. That's the way that they look at it. So I had learned, now I always try to say suffragists. And it really truly is a piece of American history. It's the story of these women. It's an entire female cast. Even there's a few male roles that are played by the women in the show. And it tells the history of their struggle to earn the right to vote in the United States. And it really is a piece of history. And it has a lot of different, obviously telling the story of the history, but there's also a lot of drama within the characters and the different approaches to this movement and how they want to achieve it, and the different activists who work together and then work separately. It really is a piece of drama. And the woman who wrote the show, she wrote the book, music, and lyrics. Her name is Shayna Taub. She also stars in the show. So it's really empowering for women and tells this piece of history, but it's also written and stars one person who really created this as her piece of art. So it's pretty inspiring. Do we have a video, or are we going to skip?
We
Oh,
do.
no, we do. Okay.
I want my mother to know I was here.
That's
I
her.
want my sister to know I was here. I want my great granddaughter to know I was here. I want my students to know I was here. I want my niece to know I was here. I want your great granddaughter to know I was here. I'm a great American fish. Drink if they've called you an hag. Drink if they've called you a slut or a shrew. Drink if they've called you a crazy hag. Drink if the rumors are true. We're meant to be heard.
Yeah, I let the sound cut out for me too. I see someone saying that. Well,
Yeah.
sorry guys, listen, that's live theater, right? You never know what's going to happen. Sometimes things go wrong and you just got to kind of go with the flow. The show must go on. But we can obviously share all these videos and stuff with you guys too. And you can
Or come to New York and see
Google
yourself.
search them. Yeah, and come to New York, see the shows. So we only have a couple more new stuff to go over. Water for Elephants, also brand new this season, nominated for 7 Tony Awards, including Best Musical. And this was a book, also a very famous book. A lot of adaptations of books this season, or iconic books, I guess. I think the book was written in like 2005, but essentially this is very, very, very basic. It's the story of a man reflecting on his younger days when he had just lost his parents and he ran away with the circus. And at the circus, he came from a veterinary background, so he sort of became the vet in the circus, taking care of all of the animals, and developed a really deep love for those animals, and in fact developed love for them so much that he was not happy with the way that they were being treated by the ringmaster. And there's some romance and there's a lot of drama that happens, but because it sort of takes place in a circus and as the circus is traveling, there's also a lot of amazing circus acts in the show. People doing acrobats and flying on silks and doing all this really, really visually stunning, amazing circus acts that you don't get a lot in a Broadway musical. So, of course, it is a Broadway musical and tells this amazing, moving story, but you also get a little bit of a circus element on stage, which I was pretty impressed by. I was like, wow, incredible that they're doing that on stage right now. And we'll see how it goes. But again, nominated for Best Musical. So let's take a quick look at this one too. Okay, and I think this is our last new show that we're going to talk about on this webinar. So, The Who's Tommy. Tommy, can you hear me? I'm sure a lot of you have heard this music before, even if you don't even realize it's from it. So, this is a revival of The Who's Tommy. It originally, The Who, famous rock band. This was a concept album of theirs that they adapted into a musical, and The Who wrote really great rock music, and this is what we call in the music theater the genre of rock opera. So they sing basically through the entire show, and it is this whole entire album adapted into a story on stage. It's a bit of a bizarre story about this young boy who has a traumatic experience, and he becomes blind and deaf, and his parents are struggling with how to cope with that as he grows up. But he's not really blind and deaf. He's just been traumatized, and then he has a breakthrough and then becomes famous, and he's a pinball wizard. He happens to be like a genius where he plays pinball to an incredible degree of skill. But so the story is a little bit bizarre when I'm saying it even out loud. It's like, really, that's what it's about? But it's really about the music, and the production value is amazing. So if you're a fan of like rock operas, this is it. The choreography in that show is amazing. So this is just a little snapshot into what shows made the most money last week on Broadway. As you can see, some of these long running hits I mentioned before, Lion King, Wicked, Hamilton, MJ is relatively new but doing really well, and Hell's Kitchen, the most nominated show of this season that I spoke about earlier. So here's just a snapshot. Broadway is 8 times a week, all of these shows. So we have a lot of seats to fill, and that's why we're grateful for all of your partnership. But this is just a little snapshot of what was the hottest tickets last week in terms of highest grosses. And then we also kind of wanted to mention that we at Broadway Inbound, we're not only Broadway, we're Broadway and beyond. So in addition to Broadway shows, we also work with and sell the Metropolitan Opera, which is a little bit different of an experience. It's a more classical, art form. They perform at the Metropolitan Opera House up at Lincoln Center. So go there, walk by that famous iconic fountain in the middle, out of Times Square up on the Upper West Side, get a glass of champagne, explore the tiers of the Opera House, and then sit back and watch an amazing opera. And I think we have a video just that's very brief about this season. And most of the operas are sung in other languages, in French, Italian, German, etc. I saw one actually last week that was sung in English, but they do have Met titles. It's called Met titles. There's subtitles on every single seat that you can get translations into English. Also up at Lincoln Center, the New York City Ballet. Story told through the most amazing dance in the world. And, I always like to point out the Nutcracker as an amazing option during the holiday season. And again, up at Lincoln Center, so you can get out of Times Square a little bit. So the opera and the ballet are a little bit more classical experiences that aren't the same as a traditional Broadway show, but that's the thing about New York City. We've got all the greatest world-class performing arts, and there's something for everyone. Again, as a traveler, I know I keep saying that, but it's true. We also, for FIT sales, for individual ticketing, we are the travel trade distribution for the New York Yankees. So make your way over to the Bronx. You can take the subway from Manhattan to Yankee Stadium. And oh, I see a, you know what? I shouldn't say this on this webinar, but I'm originally from south of Boston, and I'm also a Red Sox fan. So, but I didn't say that because I'm selling the New York Yankees. But yeah, anyway, I just see someone commenting. So, but yeah, New York Yankees. So obviously, seeing a baseball game is an iconic American pastime, and it's just going to the stadium, get a thing of popcorn and a beer, and it's a must-do activity during the season. So we also got that. Also, we had the Museum of Broadway, brand new, well, a little over a year old, so I guess it's not brand new, but an amazing new museum right in Times Square on 45th Street. And it is all about the history of Broadway. It takes you through some of the most iconic and influential shows throughout Broadway's history. It's not a guided museum, but it's a walk through. So it's not like the Met Museum where you go wander around and can kind of, go here, go there. It takes about 90 minutes depending on how long you stay and read and look at everything, but you guide through from the beginning to the end. So there is like a path that you take through the museum. And we have that for groups and FIT. Working with us, we can keep this short. We are the B2B. That's as I mentioned in the beginning, we want to make the travel trade able to book tickets easily. We work globally. We have an online booking portal. We have an API connection. We have a new white label option. But really, what you need to get from that slide is our websites, because that's where you can get a lot of the information about all the shows. How to book, Denise can probably talk about this one too, but we work with a lot of the travel brands, not only that's on this slide, but even more that are specialized in selling, in working with you and paying you a commission. So we give wholesale rates to our clients, which enables them to add in a commission for you and still make a little bit of a profit from the sale, and make it again easy to book the tickets. So where your preferred booking path is for Broadway tickets and maybe other tours and activities when you're sending people to New York, most likely they work with us, and so we're getting them the tickets on the back end, and then they're able to offer you a commission for the sale. That's why we exist. And I will just say, to be clear, we at Broadway Inbound are not a broker. We're not someone who's bought a bunch of tickets and now we're trying to resell them. That's not what we do. We are actually part of the primary ticketing. So when you buy a ticket through us or one of our partners, examples you can see on the screen, that ticket is a completely and totally legitimate ticket that is being purchased directly from the box office of the theater. And that is important to know, because a lot of these reseller marketplaces that exist out there in the world, you've got to be careful with some of those, because you might be buying a ticket from any Joe Schmo who bought it and is marking it up by, 100, 150%. And sometimes you end up with situations where they get resold or double sold. And so the only reason I'm saying that is because we are an actual primary ticketing source that is a legit supplier to the travel trade. So just to be aware of that as we move forward in this discussion. And I guess, Denise, you can mention yourself since you're on this slide.
Yeah, so as Jared mentioned, I mean, we do have a lot of options. I'll go back to that last slide again. I know on a lot of you, depending on who's on the call, you might have a direct account with Viator or Get Your Guide. Travel brands, they actually work with Viator, so are earning commission. If Travel Brands is a preferred tour operator, certainly that is an option for you as well. Expedia Tap has all of our inventory as well. And then here in the Toronto market, we work with a wonderful lady. She owns Simply iTickets, and she can look after tickets for you as well for anything on Broadway through Broadway Inbound and the Broadway Collection. And then if you as an organization are interested, or as an agency interested in setting up a direct link to our BI Pro where you can go in and book your own tickets, for sure reach out to me and I'd be happy to discuss next steps. But really we just need a corporate credit card number on file to process all of the bookings, and we process that net wholesaler rate as Jared had mentioned, and then you can mark it up any which way you please. The good thing about having a direct account with us is once you're in the system, you actually see our net wholesaler rate with all fees and everything included. And then you also see the box office or like a Ticketmaster price. So you can really see what the difference is between the two and how much you can actually mark it up without going over or being more expensive than booking it if a client tried to book it themselves, say through Ticketmaster. So the best source for information is our website, so broadwaycollection.com. And as Jared had mentioned, that is all of our top shows that we promote here in Canada and around the world. And then anytime I can be of assistance, and I know a lot of you do reach out to me. I am the account manager here based in Canada, and I work very closely with Jared in New York City. So my phone number with extension and my email address is also on the screen.
And I will mention too that this Broadway Collection site you see, for any of our French Canadians who may be on the call, we do have all the show information translated into French as well. Other foreign languages as well, but it is, and you can take those descriptions in English or French. Please feel free to copy and paste them and use them to put into your own, email blast or newsletter or whatever it is that you may do to promote trips to New York City to your client base. So definitely please take that information. It's there for you to use. You don't have to ask us.
And if you have any groups, the Broadway Collection is a good resource as well, where you can click on, say, Wicked, and it'll tell you maybe minimum 15 tickets or whatever the minimum is for that show and based on the dates that you're looking for. So it's really a great website. It gives you information if it's good for students, who it's good for, which theater it's playing at. And like I said, for groups, the minimum number of tickets required.
Yes. And I think, it's our, thank you. Oh my goodness, our last slide. So I think we did okay on time, right, Candace?
Yeah, I think we did well.
All right.
Yes, absolutely. Great on time. And wow, just so many amazing things to learn about. How do you choose? Who can choose what show to see? I mean, I'm like, hey, yes, that one. They just all sound so fabulous, all the new shows that we learned about today. So thank you for going through all of those with us and for all the information that you shared. We just have a few questions here, so we can ask those before we close out for today. First one comes from Derek. I'm going to rephrase it a little bit just so I think it will be a more universal question. But Jared or Denise, I think you could both answer this. And I think a lot of it was answered during, or there was some examples given during the presentation, and this got asked pretty close to the beginning, but I think it's worth chatting about. So Derek is asking something along the lines of, can you offer travel advisors a few selling points that they can share with their clients who are hesitant about buying Broadway tickets because of the higher price point, when they think, oh, I could just see a show in Toronto, or I could see a show in whatever, Canadian city there is a Broadway traveling show of. And I mean, there's so many reasons, I think, but it would be great to hear what you would offer.
Yeah, and I will say, to be totally transparent and honest, seeing a Broadway show can be a premium experience. It is more expensive most of the time than going to an observation deck or getting on a hop off bus. So I'm not going to pretend that it's a cheap activity to do. But that being said, there are many different prices per performance for every budget. So within each show, it's not like every single ticket costs one amount. There are maybe 6 or 7 different price points within the theater, depending on where you sit. So premium seats will be more expensive than the lower price tickets up in the rear mezzanine or the rear balcony, for example. But on that note, Broadway theaters are much smaller and more intimate than people realize. So the largest Broadway theater only seats about 2,000 seats. So if you think of that compared to some huge arena or some big concert hall where you would go see Taylor Swift or something, they're actually quite intimate. So even in those lower price points, there is not really a bad seat in the house. So there is something for every budget. And I completely hear you that you can see a show in Toronto and you can see a show in London and you can see a show touring through Shreveport, Louisiana, but Broadway really is the cream of the crop. The most talented and incredible people from all over the world, their goal as a theater professional is to make it on Broadway. So there, as a premium experience, there's sometimes a little bit more of an elevated quality to the show that you're watching on Broadway as opposed to seeing one of the touring productions. I'm not poo-pooing a touring production or a show in Toronto. They can be amazing as well, and please go see them. But there's nothing quite like seeing it on Broadway in New York City. And the experience of going into the theater alone is something that is very kind of once in a lifetime. These theaters are historic. They have their own kind of look and feel to them, and the experience of walking through Times Square and waiting in line for a little bit to get in and get your seats in your playbill, maybe get a glass of wine to sit in your seat and watch the show. That experience alone, even separate from the show, can be something that's very memorable for a lot of travelers. So I hope that kind of helps in terms of the convincing to pay the money. My biggest thing would be, don't be too scared of that, because there is something for every budget. And if one particular show might be too expensive for a traveler, as you saw in this presentation, there are so many other options, and some of those other shows may be a little bit less priced depending on the date that you're looking at. So don't be afraid by the first choice that you look at. If it's too expensive, there is something for everyone.
Thank you very much for that answer. Derek also says great options. Thank you. I think also just the availability of so many shows. There are just so many shows on Broadway that won't come to, a lot of the cities that the traveling shows come to as well. So I think about that a lot.
Yeah, and the thing with Broadway too is that they're permanent shows. So the production quality and the way that they can, load the sets and the costumes and the lights, and it's a full orchestra, because they're more permanent, they're more upscale and more majestic and a bigger production value than a traveling show that's got to fit everything onto a bus and a truck and move to the next city. You know what I mean? So because
Yes.
Broadway is more of a permanent, they move into the theater for the long term, the production quality tends to be a lot more spectacular.
Excellent. Yes, that's a great point as well. Thanks for adding that, Jared. And then our final question that we have for today is just about travel agent discounts. So for travel agents who are selling through Broadway Inbound, can they access any discounts to Broadway shows at any time?
Reach out to us. We will definitely help you with some wholesale or some friends and family rates if you're traveling, to New York City. We definitely want you to see the shows, because the best way to be able to sell to your travelers is to see it for your own eyes. So yes, if you're planning a trip, definitely reach out to us and we can help you.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Jared. Marianne is just asking about the recording, and I just want to reiterate, yes, we will definitely be sending out a recording of this show. After today's show is over, it will be posted on our YouTube channel, and in our follow-up email, we will include a link to that recording as well, so you can rewatch this if you like. You can share it with any of your other travel advisor friends who weren't on the live show today as well. So no problem there, Marianne. And that is all our questions for today. I want to say a huge thank you to you, Jared and Denise and Broadway Inbound for being here today and sharing all of this wonderful information with us. Before we close out today, is there anything else you would like to add?
I just was saying it in the chat. Thank you all. See you in New York City.
I
We
mean, it really
appreciate
is a great product. And I mean, I think we said it at the beginning, no trip to New York is complete without seeing a Broadway show, whether you're traveling for business, a bachelorette party, pre or post cruise. I mean, always recommend it. Now you know where you can purchase these tickets and earn commission, because I think if you leave it for clients to buy them in the center of Times Square, as Jared mentioned, not only are they limited on their options, and as they get closer to the front of the line, even fewer options, but you know, they get exactly what they want and you're earning commission before they leave.
Yeah. And I would just say
Yes,
thank you all for
absolutely.
your time. I know you are probably all overwhelmed with product presentations and people trying to sell you this, that attraction in every other destination around the world and the country. So I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time and for listening to us. And hopefully we didn't ramble on too much. We get really excited about Broadway, so sometimes we have to, like, dial it back a little bit, calm down. But hopefully you could feel our passion for our products.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for that presentation. It was wonderful. We have lots of comments, as you can see here in the chat, just saying what a great presentation it was today. Jason even saying one of the best webinars in a long time. So there you go.
Great.
It was definitely a great presentation. I want to say thank you again to all the travel agents who are here with us today. And congratulations, everyone who was here is now eligible to win the 2 Broadway tickets to a show of your choice. Oh my goodness, what will you choose?
What will you choose?
Congratulations. Exactly. And stay tuned for the follow-up email where we will announce the winner. And again, you'll get the recording of this as well. And so with all of that, I would just like to say thank you so much for being here. As you know, at Travel Week, we are so dedicated to providing the very best information so you can book the best holidays and travel product for your clients. Have a wonderful, wonderful afternoon, evening, depending on where you are in Canada. And we'll see you at the next one. Thanks again, Denise and Jared as well. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.